We do have Raj up here from eMoney to talk a little bit about real world assets. Raj, if you're there, maybe just give us a little breakdown of, like what are the tailwinds from this kind of larger run up in Bitcoin, and how are you guys looking at real world assets and bringing that into what's going on?
Thank you. Thank you, Mario and Scott, for having me, first of all, in Crypto Town Hall. Thank you very much. We look at real world assets as the next generation of way of bringing liquidity into the Web3. First of all, there is over 10 trillion market to tap into, but the main thing is the biggest problem we are facing right now is how we will bring them into the Web3. If you look at, real world assets are different classes. We look at, for example, real estate, REITs, or shares or commodities. Well, shares and commodities are quite easy to bring them into Web3, but something like real estate or REITs are very, very hard to bring them, because to prove the ownership, to prove the custody is very hard. And at the same time, the local compliance and regulations are something being also very, very challenging. For example, buying an apartment in Dubai is very easy because the local rules allows a foreigner to buy. But at the same time, buying an apartment in Hong Kong or in a different country is slightly hard, because there are some certain rules which needs only certain kind of citizens to buy it, and there are certain rules and regulations to be followed. So we need to maintain a golden policy with respect. So, there are different ways of it. What I'm trying to say here is that tokenizing a real world asset is not as easy as minting an ERC-3643 token, because there are several things behind it. For example, a tokenized Tesla share. The question is, where is the custody of the Tesla share? For example, a tokenized an apartment. I fractionalized and tokenized an apartment, let's say in Burj Khalifa. Now the question is, do I really own the share of it? Do I really own the apartment? How are you going to prove the ownership? How are you going to prove the custody? That's the biggest drawback we are facing in real world asset bringing into the Web3 world. And that's why we have what we have done is we separate this into 4 sections, which we call them as 4 pillars in Web3, which are proof of identity, proof of compliance, proof of ownership, and proof of custody. Without these 4 pillars, it's impossible. It's very hard to bring or to build RWA in Web3. So bringing real world assets into Web3, it's a different stage process. So we really believe following the compliance with local regulations and building them exactly how we are building them in Web2 is the right way to build them or bring real world assets into the Web3 world. That's what we believe in. And to make it possible, we need to follow the right compliance procedure, as Andrew mentioned before, like following the local government policies, and on top of that, building the a proper procedure where to showcase for example, I buy a certain fraction of an apartment, tokenized apartment, it really proves that I'm the owner. For example, we can take an apartment in Burj Khalifa, fractionalize it into 100 parts, and then we can hand it over to a REIT in Dubai, let's say Emar. Through Emar, we got it, and then we can sell it as a token out into the market. I own one token of these 100 tokens. Now I can go back to Imar and I can verify and I can confirm that, yes, I really own a fraction of the apartment. That proves the ownership and also the custody of the apartment. So this is what is very much lacking in the industry right now. A lot of people are tokenizing a real world asset, let it be a share or a commodity, and then they're bringing into as an ERC-3643 or any other format. But where is the custody of it? Where is the ownership of it? That's the big problem we are facing in the real world asset right now.
Joe, I'm in and out. I'm listening.
All good. Yeah, no, I had a question, Raj.
Just continue.
I think people, back with real world assets, we used to just call it like security tokens, right? And I remember even it was like BTG Pactual started to do like security token offerings back in 2020. I think it's a decently sized bank in Brazil. What's the difference today between what's happening on that versus what was happening in 2020, where is it literally just the renaming from security token to real world asset, or is it the identity piece of what's happening here, like these pillars you're talking about? Like, why is it going to work this time?
Just the answer is very good question. Actually, the answer is it's definitely possible this time, is because we are exactly following the rules. For example, I have to mention about MiCA over here as well, which is market in crypto assets, which is coming in Europe very, very soon. The regulatory oversight makes things very easier. 4 years ago, there is no proper regulatory oversight, and everything is being done by just tokenizing and then calling it as a I tokenize real world asset. But it's not really working, as I mentioned before, because of the lack of the four pillars, as I just mentioned before. But right now, now things are evolved. Now regulatory oversight is in place right now. And there is, for example, we can do KYC of the users. We have centralized institutions who can do the KYC and the custody of it. So things are more easier. And it's not just about the way we are doing it in a security or in other way as well. I mean, uh, there are very difference between a security token and the tokenization of the real world asset, as I mentioned. Um, because of the changes in the regulatory oversight, and also not just about it, and also people are getting used to it. For example, 4 years ago, we don't really know exchanges doing KYC, but right now most of the exchanges are doing KYC. And of course, the giving out the data now. For example, the FATF travel rule was not there 4 years ago, but right now travel rule is there. For example, KYT is not there 4 years ago. Right now, chain analysis is the biggest one doing KYT, and it became very common. And if you really want to run an exchange or a swap or an on ramp, off ramp, KYT is compulsory right now in the product nowadays. So people are getting used to the changes in the regulations, and they're accepting that, okay, now this is common right now. Yes, KYT is common. Yes, KYC is common. More people accept the changes, it becomes more easy to bring RWA into real world, because we can't bring RWA into Web3 without passing through the compliance.
And with Securitize and BlackRock, they just launched a tokenized fund, and they launched it on Ethereum, right? Which I think that was always a big question mark for everyone. Is this sovereign nation going to launch some sort of CBDC? Which chain did they launch it on? And I think it's pretty interesting to see BlackRock actually just choosing Ethereum. Even pre ETF, I think they're probably banking on an ETF getting approved. But what would be some of the other options? Like, why would someone choose to maybe build their own or white label something? Like if we're talking about banks, if we're talking about different projects, or are people just going to say, hey, we're just going to default to Ethereum?
So again, the difference is that Ethereum, well, there's several things. For example, here we have Ripple doing it. It's a private network, but again, Ripple is available on Ethereum as well. Now, because Ripple has kind of tokens, certain amount of tokens out, which is whitelisted from their part, and then they are minted on Ethereum. It's in a similar way. Someone have the ownership of that. For example, BlackRock is tokenizing bond, and they're putting on Ethereum, which is fantastic. But the question is, who owns those bonds? Who are actually the seller? Technically, it's the BlackRock owns it. They whitelisted on their names, and they're putting on Ethereum. So similarly, this is where it is. Things will change. For example, someone have to show the ownership of the security asset, and then you can put it on the Ethereum or Solana. Let's say Solana started token extensions 2 months ago, permission tokens on a permissionless chain, but there have to be an ownership of the token who owns it, which can run on the Solana network. That something is important. That's what we believe is that a compliance oversight of the tokens are accepted by somebody like BlackRock over there, and then it's given out in an Ethereum, which is like as a subsidized or sublet of the share or the bond to the outside community. Yeah.
And as we wrap here, I know, Raj, did you guys have an announcement today that you wanted to put out there? I think I've seen something in the background here about that.
Yeah. We launched the testnet today, actually, which is the first public permission network, as I mentioned before. It's a network where consists of all the four proofs. People, projects building on Ethereum, Avalanche, Solana, as I mentioned before. Permission tokens on permissionless chains are coming very soon. But it's great that blockchains are giving an option to add condition on the smart contracts, but to fulfill the condition, there have to be some checks to be done, right? So e-money network is the one which fulfill those checks and let users to pass through the four proofs and get them an account on other chains. But when they pass through the e-money network, they get a wallet on e-money network where the wallet address is an IBAN number. We are the first one to tokenize bank deposits as well, which is already live in the market. So we welcome people to go and test it and try it, very much like JP Morgan Onyx, but we we made it public, like Binance Smart Chain. So we're literally bringing the entire banking infrastructure into the blockchain world, where which fulfills MiCA regulations, upcoming FCA regulations as well, which are nothing but the e-money tokens, where the first ever stablecoin always pegged 1:1 with the liquid currency in a bank account. Yeah, we launched it today. So welcome people to give and have a look at it, which is very, very unique and very different. It takes a while to understand, but it's as per MiCA regulations. Yeah.
Yeah, I did pin that. Did I hear that right? And how does that work with the IBAN number? Like if I wire money there, it goes to a wallet?
It's a good question. So what happened is that we are a bank, we are an offshore bank, and we are a blockchain as well, permission blockchain, as I mentioned, just like JP Morgan Onyx. So when you get a wallet, you have an IBAN over there. You send 1,000 euros to the IBAN. It creates equivalent amount of 1,000 euros on the chain, which is as per MiCA regulations of 2024 June 30, which is coming very soon. So you can send those e-money tokens from OX to OX. The real money moves in the background from IBAN to IBAN